The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Fisdap Tips and Tricks webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that due to the volume of attendees, all lines have been muted. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them through the chat, and we will save some time to address them at the end of the webinar. Today's Tips and Tricks topic is Preceptor Training. Our host is Ben Tape. Ben is a solutions consultant and has been with Fisdap since 2015. So without further delay, I'll pass it off to you, Ben.
Thanks, Haley, and welcome everyone. With today's webinar, we're going to be talking about preceptor training, but we mean that both with our preceptor training course, but also with learning how to use preceptors in Fisdap. So what we want to start with is getting logged into Fisdap as usual. Going to bring you to the dashboard, and the very first thing I want to speak on is what a preceptor account is in Fisdap, because by definition we actually technically don't have a preceptor account. We have two account types at the moment: instructor accounts and student accounts. Instructor accounts typically don't have products associated with them. You would create them on the account page with create a new instructor account, and they're able to do various admin options depending on what the permissions are set for in the settings. However, with the preceptor training course, we did make that essentially a instructor account product. So there's two ways that you can get the preceptor training onto an account in Fisdap with the an instructor account, and it'll depend on if the account already exists or not. So if, for example, we wanted to add the preceptor training to our Fisdap robot account, we would head to the account page, upgrade existing accounts because the account already exists. And at the very top, you'll see the upgrade instructor accounts. The rest of these are going to be for upgrading students, but in this case, you can also upgrade instructor accounts by clicking here. So you would click here, and then you would look and see which of these instructors you would like to upgrade. Now, if you see the green check mark there, that means that that account already has the training on it. So we could click the others and then go through the process to go ahead and pay for that as if you would any other order. If the program doesn't already have, or sorry, if you don't already have an instructor account for the person you want to have do the training, what you would do is come down back to the account page to buy new accounts and select preceptor training and go ahead and purchase that. And again, go through the regular process if you are going to pay for it, or you can also have the preceptor pay for it if you select that the preceptors will pay, and so on and so forth. I'm actually going to go through and cancel the order just to make sure that doesn't get confused. Just click cancel. The other thing that may happen is you may have codes either from previous orders or perhaps from if your program uses the whole shebang or the accreditation package. Both of those packages include the preceptor training code in addition to the student code for the student products. If that is the case, then you in your inventory will have a code that will allow you to create that account. So let's say we're going through this process. We have a new instructor or a new preceptor that we want to take the course. I'm going to send this code off to them. I could do it through our system by clicking it and clicking the email button, which will allow me to send it directly to an email for them. In this case, I'm just going to simply log out of my instructor account here. I'm going to go to the member login, or I could click create an account. Actually, I probably should have done that one. And then I'll click create an account on the side. It'll ask for the code. I'll enter that code. And now we just go ahead and fill in the information here. So preceptor, oh, can't spell. I'm really struggling. Training, and then just going to use one of our generic ones. And then go ahead and make that account. And as usual with new accounts, they'll have you agree to the EULA, and then we can go ahead and get logged in. So I'm just going to click continue. Remember the name I just made for it and password. And looks like I've already Nope, there we go. All right, so once you get logged in as this newly created account, you will go to the Learning Center, and then find the CAPC approved course link for this. And then you'll be taken to this page, which is essentially our Moodle page. So what you can do is log in again, and once you've done that, you'll be able to click on the Preceptor course and go ahead and get started. Now, this is a Flash-based course, which I mention because some of the browsers recently, like Chrome and Firefox, have started, they haven't removed Flash, but they have made it not on by default. So if you go to one of the videos and you get this message saying, Flash is required. Again, the browsers like Chrome and Firefox do have it, but it needs to be told to be able to use it. So what you'll do is head up here to the URL bar, and just to the left is going to be this little lock icon. Go ahead and click it, and you'll see that there's an option about a Flash, and right now it's saying block. So I'm going to switch block to allow, and I'm going to come back. It's going to tell us we have to reload the page. I'll hit reload, and there we go. Now it's going to allow us to go through and begin listening. And we've got Dave Page here. So that's how the training will work. We do have a HTML5 version of this coming out, which will not require Flash, so that step will be avoided. But for the time being, if anyone does run into that issue, using that, clicking on the lock and saying allow Flash will let them into it. Some of the other browsers like Internet Explorer do still have Flash fully allowed from the get-go. So if you wanted to just avoid that, you could use Internet Explorer and access the training that way. The other thing to note about an instructor account created through one of these Preceptor training codes is that it doesn't actually have any permissions outside of the Preceptor training. So if I go to Skills and Patient Care, it's going to say I don't have permission to view it. If I try and go to the account page, it's going to be very limited in what I have here. So if we go back to our actual Program Director account here, and we head to the account page and then to instructor account information, we now have this additional account here, but as you can see, it's got no permissions. So from here, we can then change what permissions they have if we want them to be able to do different things, like, for example, view the data in the skills tracker so they can review shifts. If we want them to even make changes to the shifts, we could give them that permission. So let's say they're a lab preceptor, you could give them permissions to edit the lab data. You can also let them enter evals or edit evals, so on and so forth with the rest of what they need. You may also want them to have the view schedules so they can see where the students are going and when. But again, we would make these changes and then hit save if we wanted to, which sure, we'll go ahead and do that for this one. So that is the closest thing we have to a Preceptor account, is essentially an instructor account that has the Preceptor training as part of it. Now, moving from there to the Preceptor sign-off or Preceptor review, this is a piece that is actually, you can have accounts like this, which are instructor accounts given to preceptors, or they don't need to have an account at all to do the Preceptor sign-off, and it all depends on how you set it up in your settings. So I'm going to go ahead and head back to the account page, head to the Program Settings section, and I'm going to click on the Skills Tracker options. Now, by default, Preceptor sign-off will be disabled. But what I can do here is uncheck this box, and now I've got additional options. So first, there is Preceptor sign-off. What level do you want to do it at? Patient level or shift level? With patient level, there will be a sign-off for every single patient that the students enter. With shift level, there'll be just one sign-off for the entire shift. So it really depends on how you as the program want to set it up. For the moment, I'm going to do the patient level. Then you have the option of how do you want them to be able to rate the student's performance, how do you want them to do the sign-off? Rate the student's performance. This will only be available in patient level sign-off. So if you have shift level sign-off, they won't see the rate the student's performance. Recorded digital signature, that's going to be just a little word box a box that appears that will allow you to use your mouse, or if you're using a mobile device, use your finger on a tablet to sign the box, as well as it'll have them type the name as well, just because sometimes it's hard to see the signature. That option does not require an account of any kind. enter a Fisdap username and password. This one would require an account, but it doesn't need to have any permissions. So what we did initially with that Preceptor training account, where we just created it and it had no permissions, that could still do a Preceptor sign off with this level because it had a username and password. And then the last option is you can choose a file attachment. So in this instance, if we selected that, if you were still doing, say, a sign off on paper, the Preceptor could take a picture of that and upload it as the attachment, as an attachment for the sign off. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like in the skills tracker itself. So we'll go ahead and head to the skills tracker, and I'll pull up our student here. And he's got a shift, and as we can see, there is this now column that talks about the Preceptor sign off. So in this case, there's the icon and there's a check mark in the circle because yes, they have gotten a Preceptor sign off on all the patients for this one. For this one, it says 0 out of 1 because there aren't any. This is a link, so we could click and go right to the Preceptor sign off from this. Or apparently not. I apologize. I will go ahead and look into that. Normally that should take you right to the sign off. But the other way to get there in case you it doesn't work is to head into the shift itself, select our patient. And because we're doing patient level sign off, there's now a third option here. So normally there's just patient care and narrative if you have the narrative on, and then now there's this third box for Preceptor sign off. So we would fill out the student would fill out the PCR, they would enter their narrative, and then they would go next to the Preceptor sign off. So there will always be a shift summary, and there will always be the plan of action and the sign off itself. This section here, this is the rate the student's performance. So that option that we checked on, that is coming out here, and as you can see, there's different sections, and the students will give their self-evaluation, and then the Preceptor will give their evaluation for it. I'm going to quickly go ahead and pull that in. The student was very confident, and the Preceptor agrees. They did a great job. So now is time to do the actual sign-off, and as you can see, here are those other three options. So enter a username and password. The Preceptor could enter their username and password. Again, anyone who has that Fisdap instructor account username and password can enter that here to do the sign-off. The digital signature, they would enter their one here, so we could put our first initial last name, and then you can use your mouse to do it. Now, with the mouse, it is a little bit tricky. I definitely recommend if you're going to use this option to use a mobile device because it makes it a little bit cleaner to get that. If your first attempt is very not good, you can hit the clear button and try again. And then attachment, again, you can upload an attachment to do it. Now, interestingly about the attachment is it'll actually provide, it lets you add a new one, but it'll also have available all the attachments that were already uploaded to that shift. So in this case, there was an attachment on here, so I could actually select that as the sign-off. Now, in this case, this attachment wouldn't make much sense of the sign-off, but again, usually it's going to be when the users have done something on paper and they've taken a picture and uploaded as an attachment. That's going to be used as a sign off. So I'm going to go ahead and come back here and we'll just for ease use my autosave one, and then you can say to lock the patient and the narrative documentation for the patient. So if the student has completed their work and you as the preceptor are checking them off, you can make sure that they are not going to be able to continue on with that patient because you're essentially locking them out of it. If they haven't completed it, but you still want to get the sign off, let's say they didn't complete it on the shift, but they don't want to have to go back to the hospital again, the preceptor can opt to not lock it as there as an option. So I'm going to select the lock the patient care and hit sign off. I'm indicating that's complete and correct. Yes, that's all good. And as you can see, there was some missing information, so it actually couldn't be locked just yet. So I'm going to go ahead and head back to there. And what was missing was indicating who the preceptor was. So in this case, there is no preceptor option. And this is an important piece of distinction because as we've been talking about so far, there's not technically preceptor accounts, but you can create an instructor account to be a preceptor. However, that is not pulled from the quote-unquote preceptor list. So every site will have a preceptor list that can be either added to by the students themselves by clicking the add new preceptor, or it can be edited in the sites, which we'll jump to in just a moment. So in this case, there's none to select for, so I'm going to click add a new preceptor. We'll just put Fisdap Preceptor and save. And now we are all set. Everything is taken care of on this patient. And if we come back to the My Shift page, we, oh, sorry, that's right. We didn't actually finish the sign off because it didn't have everything it needed. So we'll go ahead and do that sign off one last time, lock the patient. And once it finished loading, there we go. Now it's showing that we didn't mark to lock it. So in this case, when you do patient level sign off, you can actually lock patients individually. So the student can't go back to this patient, but they could go back to add other patients to the shift. Now, if we do if the shift were locked, we could unlock individual patients and not necessarily do all of them. However, if a shift does get locked and then unlocked, the preceptor's sign off will be lost. So they would have to get the preceptor sign off again. There is a warning about that, so they should know that if they are about to, an instructor's about to unlock the shift, that the audit or the preceptor sign off will be removed again. It will warn you about that before you go ahead and do that. So if we head then back to the shift list, we would see now again that one is showing we've met that goal. If we wanted to go and edit on the list of preceptors, we would head to the account page and then to sites and go ahead and pull up Fisdap ambulance service. And oh, sorry, it was the other one. My apologies. Fisdap EMS. And then once you've edited it, there's a preceptors option to the left. And when you select it, you'll see a list of preceptors that have either been added by the instructors in the program or added by students. As we saw, this was one that was added directly in the PCR, but it adds the preceptor here. So if we wanted to add a new one, we could do that here. Preceptor. And we can fill in the other information if we want. We can mark them inactive or active. And then if a situation happens where there's multiple, say, for example, you as the instructor add it, but then a student didn't check the list and they also add it, as we see here, what you can do to clean up your list is select both these options and click the merge, and then you'll select who you want to merge into, and it'll effectively remove that other option. Any of the instances that they had been marked as the preceptor, it'll change it to whoever you merge them into. So if there are instances of typos or anything like that, the merge will be very helpful for clearing up that list and making sure that it's not unwieldy when you're trying to edit these shifts and see who is doing the precepting and signing off on everyone's shift. And then the other piece I wanted to touch on are some of the reporting options that can be used for this. So on the reports page, there is a preceptor sign-off report. And this report is effectively using that rate the student's performance option. So what we can do is select the evaluation type we want to look for. Let's say we just wanted to see interview and history taking, and then we can put a eureka point in to see at what point they've hit that eureka, which again is a success rate essentially. So right now it defaults to 16 out of 20, but if we did, one of the last two, then it would be changed to 50% success rate with that. We can select our location information, patient type information, all of that, and we'll go ahead and select our student, hit go. And right now, again, not a lot of data for the student, but they did have for that skill what the student's rating was, what the preceptor's rating was. Both are considered passing, so that looks good. We also have a link to that shift itself. So if we want to go and check on that, we can actually click on this, or what I like to do if I'm running the report is actually right-click and open in a new tab. That way we don't lose the results of the report we ran, but then we do get to then go to that shift. So we could then pull up the preceptor sign-off and take a look and see, okay, great, it was verified at this time. It's going to have the timestamp. If you want to make changes, you'll need to unverify it at the bottom, and then you would have to re-verify it as well. So we can take a look at that. With this report, you can also do it for multiple of these options. So we could see essentially their entire rate the student's performance results, and then also be checking for Eureka points, and do all of that in one go for a single student. So you're always going to be selecting which student you want to run it for, and as you can see, it breaks it down for each of these options. With this report, you actually can run it for more than one student, although I don't know if the others have had any sign-offs, but let's take a look. And with most reports, the more students you select, the longer it'll take as it's pulling up that information, but effectively it's going to go through, and as you can see here, when there's no results for a student, it just says no results there. So we could then make a PDF of that if you want to save it, and then you would have that data saved for whenever you need it. The other report to mention here is the Preceptor Sign-Off Completion Report. So with your instructors that you have taking the Preceptor Training, Preceptor Training Completion Report, with the instructors you have taking the training, you can see if they have completed it or not by using this report. So first, the available instructors are only going to pull the ones that have the training. So there were 2 other instructors in this program. We're not seeing them because they don't have the training. If we were to run it for one of the instructors, in this case, we know that this instructor hasn't completed. We just literally created the account today. But as you can see, it did not find any results. So if they haven't completed it, it will not show results. If they have completed it, it'll show when they completed it. If you want, you can also have your preceptors provide you with the certificate that they receive if you want to have that documentation as well. So when they complete the training, they will get a certificate that shows that they've completed it. That's also worth CE hours. It's worth 4 CE hours, which is roughly about how long the training takes. And so if you want to have that extra copy, you can have them provide the certificate. Otherwise, this report will show you that they have completed it. With that, we will see if there's any questions about this, because we've covered most of the information here. Let me see if I see any questions. I am not at the moment. Haley, if you could confirm if we do or do not have any questions right now.
We don't. So just a reminder to everyone, if you have any questions, you can send them through the chat feature.
Give it a moment here in case anyone has a question. Otherwise, while anyone might be typing, or if not, we'll just say that we do have our next upcoming webinars in 2 weeks and then 4 weeks. Kurt will be running how to input student data for the Appendix G for the various tables. And then 4 weeks, I will be doing a deep dive into lab shifts, again with a focus on the Appendix G and how the different methods of entering data in labs will affect the different tables and columns in Appendix G. And we've got our link there if you want to see our past videos or if you want to sign up for these upcoming ones. And otherwise, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and we'll hopefully see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. There will be a quick survey after the webinar, so please be sure to let us know your thoughts on today's webinar and if you have any suggestions for future topics. If you have any additional questions that weren't addressed today, please feel free to submit them there as well. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.